Hey guys, NBA Bros here today with a new video, this one on the Miami Heat and what they should do this offseason in free agency. I am Shumpo, joined by my brother Rich. Rich, how are you today?
Doing well, Shumpo. And I'd just like to point out to all the viewers before we get started that in our last video we talked about possibly coming out with a video previewing the Oklahoma City Thunder. However, with the recent developments in South Beach with the Big Three opting out, we thought it would be a little bit better and more fun to talk about Miami in this video.
Alright, so as you can see with the players under contract for the 2014-15 season, you got Norris Cole at $2.15 million and Justin Hamilton with that non-guaranteed team option there.
Alright, so Miami has a decision to make as to whether they want to renounce all their free agents or not. If they do renounce all their free agents, Shumpo, they will create a record $55 million in cap space. You can see the numbers right there. Cole would be the only player under contract. That's assuming they waived Hamilton. There'd be a cap hold for Napier and then an incomplete roster charge. You can see what those numbers add up to, the projected salary cap, and how much cap space they would have if they renounced all their free agents.
Alright, now this is everyone is renounced, and what you see on the screen right here is kind of an unrealistic scenario for the Heat. They were talking about signing some of these guys and having that $12 million in cap space, but that's not going to happen.
Right, it's highly unrealistic. There were reports that Wade would be willing to take a deal starting at $12 million per year, and that Bosh would be willing to take a deal starting at $11 million per year.
No way.
I don't know about you, Shumpo, but I think that's realistic. I think Wade and Bosh might agree to take pay cuts, but they have too much pride to take that big of pay cuts.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so again, you can see the numbers right there. If LeBron was able to, LeBron has basically said he wants a max salary. So if Miami gave LeBron a max salary and they wanted to have about $12 million in cap space, Wade and Bosh would have to take the numbers you see on that screen. And then combined with those other roster charges, they would be about $12 million in cap space. But again, probably unrealistic. We don't think Wade and Bosh are going to be taking that money or that little of money.
Alright, so then we talk about what the Heat should do. We do not think that they should announce LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Mario Chalmers, Ray Allen, Udonis Haslem, or Birdman. The cap holds would put Miami over the salary cap, which would limit them to using only exceptions to sign free agents.
Yeah, they would also have a $2.2 million trade exception. And just to clarify what Shumpo just said, if Miami doesn't renounce those guys that he just named and that you can see on the screen, Miami would actually not have any cap space. However, if they signed those guys to the right prices, they would still have the ability to use their full mid-level exception and their biannual exception, in addition to that trade exception we talked about, to sign free agents. So with that being said, in order to maximize their full mid-level exception and their biannual exception, they would need to sign their unrenounced free agents first, and here are the numbers that we have come up with.
Alright, then you got bird rights you see for a lot of those guys, so they can go over the cap in order to sign them. They must sign these guys first to allow for full usage of their exception, mid-level exception, and biannual exception. We have LeBron at the max deal of $20.7 million. Chris Bosh, we think at 16.5. Wade at 16. And then the rest of those guys with their bird rights and exceptions as follows.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these would just be the salaries for the first year of the deals.
Yeah.
So, you know, those salaries for Wade and Bosh could increase, obviously, given that they're re-signing their contract with their bird rights. But we think those are probably more realistic numbers for Bosh and Wade to consider taking in order to keep the Big Three intact, which Miami obviously has to do if they want to be competitive in the future years. And then I just want to point out something about Chris Birdman Anderson. He's played with Miami for about 1.5 years. He signed halfway on, Shumpo, through the 12-13 season, and I'm not sure if that would allow them to use early bird exception to re-sign him or not. But regardless, it would probably be smart of them to renounce those early bird rights if they had them, and just use the non-bird exception to re-sign him, which would be a value slightly more than the veteran minimum contract, which is probably at this point in his career what he's worth.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can see the total salary would be $66.2 million. That's what Miami would have in committed salary for next year if they were to re-sign all those free agents for those amounts.
But with only 7 guys in the roster, we got to do a couple more signings. So as you can see, we have our full mid-level exception, biannual exception, and that $2.2 million trade exception left to sign guys to get up to that 12-man roster.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, you know, we talked about earlier how Miami would have to renounce these exceptions, or they wouldn't have these exceptions if they renounced other free agents that had the cap space. But I just want to point out that when Miami made that Joel Anthony trade, I believe that was back in January,
The trade exception.
Yeah, they gained a $2.2 million trade exception, and if they renounced all their free agents and all their exceptions, they would also have to renounce that $2.2 million trade exception, which could be a nice asset for them if they don't renounce those players. So, regarding the trade exception, what we think Miami should do, we think they should trade Norris Cole to the Los Angeles Clippers for either Jared Dudley or Matt Barnes. And Shemple, why don't you tell us why this deal makes sense for both teams?
Well, the Clippers lost their backup point guard in Darren Collison to the Sacramento Kings. So Norris Cole just slides in, takes that role, and Jared Dudley, Matt Barnes, both energy guys off the bench. Probably preferably Jared Dudley, a little bit better offensively sounded player. Gives them some wing help off the bench as well.
Right, Jared Dudley, 40% or slightly under 40% from the three-point line for his career. Again, Barnes or Dudley would fill a much-needed role off the bench for Miami, and Norris Cole would slide into that backup point guard spot for the Clippers. And we should also point out that there have been reports surfacing that the Clippers have been looking to trade one or the other when it comes to Dudley or Barnes, or possibly even both. So.
And also in trading Cole, you could just slide Napier into that backup point guard spot,
right?
So you're not losing a backup.
Yeah, that's another good point. With the drafting of Napier, that makes Cole pretty expendable. So another good point there, Shumpo.
Then you take a look at their full mid-level exception. You can break this up. You don't have to use all 5.3 million of it. So we decided they break it up into 2 players, and those 2 players being Andre Bloch and Jordan Crawford. And Rich, why don't you tell us a little about those guys?
Yeah, so you can see the numbers right there: 2.8 million for Bloch, 2.5 million for Jordan Crawford. I thought Bloch had a pretty productive year this year for Brooklyn. He looked good in the games that I saw. Don't get to watch too many Brooklyn Nets games, being from the Midwest, but he looked good in the games I saw. Brings scoring to the table, decent rebounder. And another thing we should point out is that it sounds like Brooklyn has not even reached out to Bloch.
No.
So it sounds like they don't have any interest in bringing him back. That being the case, he would provide some much-needed depth in the front court for Miami, some front court scoring, which they have sorely lacked in recent years.
Just big man depth in general.
Right, and that's probably that salary. You could probably stretch that out. Starting salary of 2.8, you could probably get that 2 to 3 year deal. But Bloch, again, rebounding, size, not really a rim protector, but again, some sorely needed front court scoring and depth would be a good signing for Miami. You look at Jordan Crawford. Was putting up good numbers in Boston, went to Golden State, didn't play very much, but again, he's a me-first guy, and when you look at Miami, again, priority number 1 for them this offseason, priority number 1, obviously, keeping the big 3 intact. Priority number 1A, though, is keeping or improving the bench. Jordan Crawford, again, he's a me-first guy, can create his own shot off the dribble, he can get others involved, but again, you think about Dwayne Wade, his health continues to decline, Shumpo. Right, you can probably anticipate him missing about 20 games again this year. Crawford's a guy that can come in and get buckets, help take some pressure off James and Dwayne Wade when he's resting.
And a little bit of a combo guard, too.
Right, and the fact that he didn't play much in Golden State probably
lowered his value,
diminished his stock a little bit. But again, a guy that Miami could sorely use, and he would help them tremendously with backcourt depth.
All right, then the biannual exception that the Heat have is about little over $2 million.
Yeah, I think the biannual exception for any team that uses it this year is worth about $2.08, I think. $2.08 million, sorry.
And to continue to improve their big man depth, we think signing former most hated man in the NBA, Chris Humphries.
Right, Chris Humphries, rebounds and defends. That's really what he does. He can step out and shoot it a little bit, but he doesn't have much of a post game. But again, when you're talking about Miami, they were super thin up front this year. They have been the last couple years as well. Humphries is younger, gives them a little bit more athleticism on the front line, as Shumpo talked about. And again, he's just in there to bang, rebound, and play defense for you.
All right, you can see their depth chart right here. Starters kind of similar to last year. You got Chalmers, Wade, LeBron, Haslam, and Bosh, and then the bench that we've talked about with Crawford, Ray Allen, the Dudley or Barnes, whichever one you can get, and then the big men.
Right, and I think a lot of Miami fans might look at this and say, well, we have the same starting lineup. How does this make our team better?
It's the bench.
Shumpo, you're exactly right. The bench is what really is going to upgrade or improve Miami in the coming years. If you can go out and get Jared Dudley, which we think they should prioritize him over Matt Barnes, much better shooter than Matt Barnes. He's a career 40% three-point shooter, so he's going to provide some more shooting off the bench. Crawford is going to provide some more playmaking off the bench. Bloch, again, scoring, big front court depth, and then Humphries, same thing, rebounding and defending. So with this lineup, same starting lineup that Miami's had in the past. And again, that with Haslam in there, you could slide him out and slide Birdman in. You could mix and match in the front court. But we think this combination gives Miami the best chance to be successful moving forward. You get players at discounts, you keep the big three intact, and you've still got quality depth.
Then you take a look at the team salary for next season. We can talk about some of those numbers before. Puts them at that below the apron. I know you were talking about the benefits that the Heat would have by signing below the apron. I think you're going to explain about what the apron is and all that.
Yeah, so basically what the apron is it's the $0.4 million above the luxury tax line. And the projected luxury tax line this year, Shump, I believe, is about roughly $77 million. So the $0.4 million above that would be $81 million. It's important to bring this up because in Miami's case, if they want to use their full mid-level exception and their biannual exception to sign players, if they do use those exceptions, they're hard capped at the apron, which means their team salary in any circumstance cannot exceed the apron in the 14-15 season. With these salaries right here, there's 12 men on the roster, total of just over $79 million. That allows them about 2 spots to slide in veteran minimum guys to round out the roster. So with these salaries, gives Miami the most flexibility, Shump, I think, and it gives them the most depth.
Alright, and so we're going to thank you guys for watching this video. This is our second video on NBA Bros. It's for Rich and Shumpo.
Alright.
See you later.
Yep, that'll be it, guys. See ya.